Paranormal in Pennsylvania may discuss topics such as suicide, murder, and other potentially upsetting things. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania,
where we discuss history and hauntings.
Today's story takes us to Westchester, Pennsylvania. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Erica.
Let's get into it. This season, we're being sponsored by our friends at Haunted US. They travel the country bringing you real stories of American hauntings every Thursday at hauntedus.com. So today we're covering Westchester University. I feel like this season we've been doing a tour of haunted universities, but people keep recommending them to us.
Yeah.
And they're cool stories.
It makes sense, right? Like, universities are so huge, complex histories.
Yeah, especially like Chatham University, where it was all old buildings. That one was cool. So I grew up not far from here. So I used to go to Westchester and the university all the time. Tons of people from my high school went here. And have you been?
I want to say yes. I can't remember if this is correct. What are the colors of Westchester?
Purple and gold. And the golden rams.
Okay, so I think I've been here one time for one basketball game that my dad took me to. I don't think we were rooting for Westchester, though, sadly. I think we were rooting for the other team.
Well, that's fair. I didn't know that it was haunted, and I think it's interesting because unlike the other ones that had old buildings that they kind of acquired, you'll see in the history, these buildings were built just for the university. So they don't have a lot of history that predates the university. But that being said, it's an old university. So the history all comes from Westchester's website. They actually had a ton of historical information out there because they celebrated their 150th birthday in 2020. So, long time.
Yeah.
And it actually began as the Westchester Academy in 1812. So it's even older than that 150th birthday. But it was the Westchester Normal School that was chartered in 1870. That was the institution that became the university that we know today. So that's why they claim 150 years. And the first class had 160 people, which I feel like is high given the other ones that we've discussed that are old. There were like 20 people at Temple, I think.
I think same at Pitt. I think the first class of Pitt was like 12.
Right.
I don't think there was 160. That's huge.
Yeah. And it's just so much older than I thought. I mean, with all of these universities, I guess they do have old architecture. Like if you think about Pitt, obviously Kathy is really old, but there's so much modern stuff that I don't think about just how old they are. I also think I'm just bad at dating buildings. I'm like, it could be from the 1800s, it could be from 1950.
I agree. That's how I am with children too. Like,
they could be from 1950 or the 1800s.
I don't know if I'm seeing a spirit or not. But no, if you placed a child in front of me, I would not be able to tell you if it was like 6 months or 4 years old.
Yes, you could. That you could.
Okay, not between the two of them. I'm saying
but like 2 to 5.
Yeah. I could tell you if it was just born. I could tell you if it was like, but like the growth from like 3 months to a year.
Oh yeah, that's hard.
Sometimes I'm like, I would have thought that this child was like 4 and it's like 1.
I think it's because a lot of motor milestones that seem really challenging to me actually happen within the first year. I used to work in an infant development lab in college, so I like reviewed videos of infants. But like infants, I think it's at like 10 months, can sit on their own and reach to grasp and like hold stuff really well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true, but our friend Chris was telling David and I that babies have such a strong grasp reflex that they could hang on a pole. Do you remember him talking about that at cabin weekend?
I don't.
Yeah, don't quote me on that, but he said that they just have that they can support their body weight with a free hang. David's like, okay. Anyways.
That's kind of crazy.
So, yeah. There's some fun facts that aren't necessarily related to this. I mean, maybe, because it did start off as a school for teachers. So
we tied it in.
Yeah.
We tried.
Because apparently that's what a normal school meant. Because I was wondering why it was called the normal school.
Right, like I was like, what is an unnormal school?
Right. So in 1960, it became an official college, and in 1982, it became a university. For those that might not have listened to previous episodes, you can become a college, but you have to get state approval to become a university. So that's the difference. I think it was one of maybe Villanova that we established that. I can't remember. It has currently about 18,000 undergrads per year and is one of the largest state-owned universities in Pennsylvania. Fun fact, Jill Biden got her master's degree here.
Cool.
Yeah, because it's still a very strong education-based school, and she has a master's of education.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. Well, that's kind of cool that they like stayed with their roots. Mm-hmm. So like school for teachers, massive education school now. That's cool.
Yeah, they also have they have a ton of majors, but I know a lot of people went there for performing arts. They do a lot of science work as well. I had looked at it for university as well.
Yeah.
So, like I said, most of the buildings were built specifically for the school over time, and they were all built mostly using locally harvested rock, which is a weird flex, but they have it on their website.
Yeah, that's a lot of rock.
And just like, strange thing to say, I would assume most universities are built using local rock.
True. Especially the old buildings.
Right.
That like weren't around for shipping all of these like materials from one end of the country or world to another.
Yeah. That's interesting to me because things, especially like limestone, can be linked to spiritual activity, or paranormal activity, I guess, rather. And so if it was in the area, I think it could already bring some energies with it, is what I was thinking.
That does make sense. Oh, yeah. The grounds. We've talked like about how like the grounds of something could be haunted even if the building itself isn't. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So there's 3 main halls that are known to be haunted on this campus. The first is called Phillips Hall, and it has a stage in it. As I mentioned, performing arts is a big major there. And allegedly, it's haunted by the spirits of people that never got their big break. And so they're still there in the building, hoping that one day they'll get their chance.
That's so interesting that this is the place that they're at.
That's what I think too.
For not getting their big break.
Go to Broadway.
That's what I was going to say. Head to New York or like Hollywood in one of the studios. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Westchester University.
Middle of PA.
Yeah. I guess I was going to say close to Philly, but ish.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But people that are in the hall report that they see full-bodied apparitions on the stage, sometimes standing, sometimes dancing. So I think it's a wide variety of performers.
That's cool.
Yeah. And people also report hearing whispering as a paranormal occurrence associated with this building, but that was debunked from what I read. I think it's super cool still, so I want to tell the story.
Ooh.
So outside of the building, near the entranceways, there's these big arches. And people reported that when you walked through the arches, you could hear whispering from the spirits that are still in the building. However, what the truth is if you stand on either side of the arch and whisper, because of the architecture, the sound will travel to the other side, kind of like those things at playgrounds, if you used to ever use them. So that's really cool to me that people think it's a haunting, but really it's just an architectural feat.
Yes, that's so cool. It made me think of the playground thing, or like in cartoons when people are speaking into cans with like the string on them. This is how people should have communicated in the olden days. Just build arches and then speak across them. And
I'm wondering what the max is for that. Like, how big can you go for that sound to travel?
Right.
Especially if you're whispering.
Right, like, can you speak and it'll do the same thing?
But then I think so. But then I think of those playground things, and those go far.
They did.
I never really looked up the science of it. I guess the sound just has nowhere to go but travel.
Right.
It seems like that would be not working. I don't know. Weird. Maybe that's paranormal. No, I'm kidding. So that's Phillips Hall. Just the generic star type thing that we've seen at like the Fulton Theater, the Palace Theater. People that are so passionate about their careers that they don't want to leave the stage. And I think that makes sense. You land somewhere that you're comfortable, something that was significant to you.
True, yeah. So maybe that's, you know, their big break. Mm-hmm. They were expecting it to happen at the university, and so they returned to the university, maybe?
Yeah. Or maybe it was people that just really enjoyed their time there, you know? And maybe they did have a big role, and they were very excited, and then something unfortunately happened to them, and that's their happy place.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be negative.
Right. Hi, listeners. We're so excited to tell you about our partnership with Haunted US. Haunted US is an online publication that brings you credible articles on the history and specific paranormal claims of haunted locations across the country. We've even used them to research some of our episodes. Visit hauntedus.com for new haunted places every Thursday.
So, one of the hauntings here specifically occurs around homecoming weekend. And this one is interesting to me because I feel like there's so many things around homecoming weekend, right? Like, you're supposed to pet the Panther statue, you're supposed to go to home plate at Pitt. For anybody that hasn't listened to previous episodes, we all went to Pitt. That's why we keep referencing it, because we know all of their traditions and stuff. So this is a student that in the 1920s allegedly was named Dirts. It didn't say his first name, just his last name. And he hung himself in the 4th floor stairwell of the field house. Apparently, his spirit comes back every homecoming weekend to haunt the field house, since that's when he killed himself. And people report feeling as if they're being watched in the building all of the time, but very specifically during homecoming weekend.
Okay.
There are also reports of auditory hauntings. Again, these kind of like peak around homecoming weekend, with doors squeaking open, chains being dragged across the floor, and other unexplained sounds. Like, one of them I think was like basketballs dribbling and stuff, because it is a field house. Huh. But I think it's interesting because, again, it's easy to chalk everything up to one spirit that you know is there, but this isn't that far from Iron Hill Brewery, also in Westchester, which we also covered, and they had an auditory haunting of the chains being dragged.
Right.
So I wonder if this is also spirits on their way to Gallows Hill, and people just think it's Dirt. I mean, he could still be there.
Right.
But it could be more than one spirit.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yes, I think that makes like the most sense in this scenario, because I was kind of curious about where the chains would come in this situation, so that makes sense to me too.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like chaining up equipment or like lifting equipment. I don't know. I can't think of any reason you'd have chains in a field house.
No.
Really. So, yeah, I think that it's probably, people chalk it up to just Dirts, but I think it's probably more than one spirit that is there.
Right.
Especially if Dirt is manifesting specifically on homecoming weekends, but some of the other hauntings seem to happen throughout the year.
Oh, true.
I think it's easy to say that they're not associated with him then.
Yes. Also, it is interesting to me that they didn't list his first name, but then I was like, I think people really did used to go by their last names a lot more.
I think so too. I mean, well, even nowadays, like, think everybody, like a lot of David's teammates and friends call him by his last name.
I did forget about that. Yeah.
I mean, so I think it just depends. I think, like, probably in the circles that we ran in, a lot of people didn't do that. But I think especially for, like, sports teams, and maybe this person was an athlete at Westchester. It didn't say. So I think that could make more sense, too.
Yes. I think my brain assumed that this person was an athlete because of the fact that this happened in the field house. Yeah,
it didn't say much about their background. I actually thought that it was interesting that they said the last name, because initially I thought they were just saying the last name for privacy purposes. But if that were the case, I think you would just say the first name.
Right.
Because, like, Erica or Sarah is way more generic than a last name.
Right.
So yeah, I think that one's interesting. I think it definitely ties in, like you said, to the grounds being haunted, the area being haunted, as well as this specific tragic event.
Right.
There's one more known haunted building on campus, and it's named Ramsey Hall. and it's named after Dorothy Ramsey, who is an English professor that passed away. There's a plaque in the building that says her date of death is April 31st, 1974. If you didn't read the notes, I'm going to give everyone a second. What is wrong with that date?
I did read the notes, so okay. I won't say it, but also, yeah.
So, for those at home, take a second to think. What's wrong with the date April 31st? It doesn't exist. So, currently, it's a dorm, and it has this plaque in it saying that she died on a day that doesn't exist. For that, I know. Who did that? How did that happen?
It's 30 days, September, April, June, and November. Okay? It's real easy, people.
Right. Further, why has it not been corrected? Like, someone must... How many checks did it go through to be made, first? Second, why have they not just corrected it? It's wrong, and it makes you look dumb as a university, I think, that you have a day that doesn't exist on a plaque.
Yes. Yeah, and it's not even something like, well, they said that it was like February 29th, but it wasn't a leap year. This date never exists. It just doesn't.
It makes me think of the episode of Parks and Rec where April's like, I scheduled all of your appointments for March 31st. And he's like, Ron's like, oh, okay. And she's like, I didn't think it was a real date. This is the opposite.
Right. But yeah, I agree. Not correcting it. I don't know why. Like, I don't know if the university is like, this is a bit now, and they're continuing it, but feels sort of disrespectful.
It feels so disrespectful.
Death.
And that is the reason that many say Dorothy haunts this hall, because she's pissed, and I would be too. So it's currently a dorm. People say that she is a very angry spirit there because the date has not been corrected. And so maybe you're right, and maybe it's a bit because of the haunting. I just think, how much could it possibly cost to get a new plaque? It can't be a ton of money.
No.
Even if it's $5,000, which it's not, that's nothing to a university.
No. And okay, so my question, do they know the exact date of her death?
Even if they don't, just say April 1974.
That's a fair point. That's a good point.
Or just say 1974. Or just say, named after Dorothy Ramsey, English professor that passed away.
Yes. Yep.
Why make it complicated?
That's true.
Yeah. And I think she is completely valid for doing that. Some people say she haunts it because she actually died in the building, but I couldn't find anything about her death.
Okay.
So who knows? I could not find her actual death date because I did look. I was like, what day is it? But that also, like, it seems like she's very shrouded in secrecy, which is kind of interesting because why can't I find her death date online?
Well, right. And it's like at this point, it's said April 31st for so long that people are just like, yeah, whatever.
Must be.
Yeah, which is sad. Someone should look into this and like find records and try to figure this out. I know that people didn't keep the best records, but it was 1974. It's not like we're talking about the 1800s.
Right. Or I feel like me as a student that lived in the hall would like write it on a Post-it note, like April 30th on a Post-it note and like tape it on the plaque, you know?
Yeah, to at least get a date that exists in the real world.
Something.
Right.
Yeah. Or maybe they can find somewhere in their archives when she actually passed away.
Right.
Apparently, the 6th floor specifically is the most haunted, and there was no reason given. I don't know why. The plaque is on the 1st floor, I believe.
Is the 6th floor the top floor?
I don't think so.
Okay. But it's just a random floor.
Some people think that if she died in the building, that's where she died, or maybe that's where she liked to spend her time.
Right.
But I think it's interesting because a lot of the dorms that we've seen that are haunted are very, benign ghosts. There was the little boy who liked to play with the ball, and yeah, that's startling, but it's not an angry woman who's misrepresented after she gave her career to this university. I would be nervous.
Yes, I agree. And I'm wondering if do you know if it was a dorm the entire time? Like, has it changed?
It was not a dorm the entire time.
Okay. So yeah, maybe that had something to do with it too. Like, maybe that's like a place where she taught.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is now a dorm.
Yeah, but Ramsey Hall, Westchester, what are you doing? Just go fix it.
Just fix the plaque. It's
Right.
gonna take you like $200.
Right.
Not even like 0.00001 of someone's tuition.
Right. Or literally just get a chisel and chip off the 31st.
Yes.
I mean, it will be ugly, but
it might be better.
yeah, this poor woman. I think about it that way too, because obviously I wouldn't want to live somewhere with an angry spirit, but this poor woman who her unfinished business is just the university did her dirty.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
It's sad.
It is.
So those are the 3 main haunted buildings on Westchester. People said that they could also see, you know, shadow figures walking around campus, spirit orbs, stuff like that, generic hauntings. I feel like we've covered enough haunted places that we don't always need to get into all of that stuff. I like the specific hauntings better that
Yes.
are very specific to the location. Because, as I've said in multiple episodes now, part of why this is interesting to know the history and the haunting is to know the story behind the people that are there and the spirits that are there and spread the awareness for that. So, would you visit this place?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's obviously a popular university in PA. I don't fully remember too much about being there for the game. At least I think it was Westchester, but I would love to. I feel like I hear about it again all the time, and so it would be nice just to visit in general. And then, yeah, doing an investigation here would be cool.
Yeah, and with all of the college campuses, I think we could do unofficial investigations where we just like walk around because
Yeah.
they're open to the public. And this one is enough in a city type area without being in the city. Like at Pitt or Temple, if you were to walk around at night, they'd be like, okay, what are you doing? You probably have to swipe into all of the buildings. But I think this is a populated enough place that we could walk around without being alarming.
Yeah.
So we could probably do something there. I've personally never had a paranormal experience there, but I haven't been into many of the buildings. I've just been on campus itself and primarily during the daytime. I would love to go back. The campus itself is beautiful, and there's a lot to do in Westchester. It's a cool area.
Yeah.
We could do like a Westchester haunted location crawl.
Yes. I was just gonna say we could do like a YouTube series of like campus non-official investigations.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Too.
Yeah, if you're listening, let us know if that's something you would like to see. I think that's a great idea. Of like, here we are at Villanova campus. Here we are on Pitt's campus.
Right.
That would be cool. Especially even to just go outside these buildings. A lot of times we say, you know, we obviously want to be very respectful. Even to just go outside these buildings and see if we can get any activity, I think it would be cool to
Yeah.
do. Yeah. So those are the hauntings of Westchester University. Thank you for tuning in this week, and tune in next Thursday to see what history and hauntings we discuss next. Stay spooky, my friends.